All right, my name is Jeremy Reichel. I'm going to go through my call to action project here. Here's my Twitter handle at Jeremy Reichel, and the basis for this project is kind of a passion and a plea for an identified change or opportunity that I see in education, and it really stems from the mission statement, or not the mission statement, but the central why that we've identified as a staff at our school here, and it has to do with helping kids discover what we call their awesome possibilities, and I really believe in that. So I'm going to refer to that and kind of structure my project through helping kids discover. I'm going to start with the opportunities that I think we have here as educators. My big call to action or idea here is design thinking and implementing more design thinking in all of what we do at school, and curricular and extracurricular. And I really enjoy this quote here, showing the dichotomy of what design thinking really offers. And this plays out every day in my classes, the structure and the chaos, the intuition, the logic. And there is a balance to be had in letting students explore and try, and also offering them some guidance. So I think design thinking is a really powerful tool and model that we can really benefit from by incorporating more of it. I'm going to start here by referring to the Stanford D-School model of design, which we began our school year with, and help students see that design is a very brain-oriented process that we go through quite naturally and quite intuitively, and helping make it more visible for the students really lets them know that we are all designers. We come up with solutions all the time, and one way that we try to help our students improve that process, that problem-solving and designing process, is by getting them to think a little bit about empathizing with the problem, getting them to see that the solution can be improved by thinking through the perspective of the person for whom the solution is centered. And it's also a very appropriate skill to teach to junior high level students, some empathy. We also talk a lot about the brainstorming process, or ideating and making wild ideas, as it says there, less wild, more appropriate, more normal, more okay and useful. And I was just recently watching a TED Talk about prototyping, and I think that's also a really awesome skill to teach students to develop a prototype. And the presenter in the TED Talk, Guy Kawasaki, was talking about the phrase that he uses, "Don't worry, be crappy," which he meant, a prototype has to start somewhere, and even if it's not your final polished version, put it out there and see what it does, and see what improvements it needs and that you can offer to it. But you do have to start somewhere. And I think students are really hesitant to do that sometimes. So teaching them prototyping, teaching them that your first version is okay, is really powerful for them to see that it doesn't have to be the final product. We are an IB school where I teach, and I think that the IB design cycle, as I said earlier, is a really natural process that a lot of humans use in a wide variety of situations without realizing that we're going through all these steps. And what we're doing is teaching students these steps very intentionally, so that they can apply the design thinking and the design process to other situations, be they in school or elsewhere. And I think that teaching the planning process is something that students really like to gloss over. But if we can get them to be more planful and more thoughtful about the solutions that they come up with, I think that they will only improve those skills. Okay, as far as how it ties to innovation, I think that innovation often gets lumped or treated as a synonym with using technology. And technology is fantastic, necessary, productive, useful. But what we want to avoid with innovation is making it too synonymous with just technology. We can innovate in lots of ways, and as some of the other words in this image that I really thought was a good representation of innovation here. The goal, keeping the goal in mind, letting the creativity fly with what's going on, making sure that it's about good ideas, improving old ideas and coming up with new ideas. And I think that there is a lot to offer through design thinking by innovating. So again, back to how are we using this with our students and empowering them? We're really showing them that it's okay to not know anything about what you're trying to solve. In fact, that sometimes it offers the freshest perspectives and really lets them explore and run with their curiosity and build new skills and find totally different ways of approaching a problem or creating a solution. And so making the impossible very possible simply by having little or no experience in a problem is not always a bad thing. Okay, in terms of empowerment, what we're doing at our school to empower students and colleagues is first and foremost just starting with letting them explore, letting them try things, and letting them walk outside their comfort zones. We're always presuming best intentions in staff and students. We're trying to solve problems and improve skills and knowledge here. It does start with whether a teenager or an adult, finding your support team, knowing who you can turn to when something gets difficult. Maybe your project is failing or it needs troubleshooting. Likewise with colleagues, knowing who to go to, who are the experts, be they administration or other staff, that can really support you and encourage you along the way. As I mentioned, good design thinking starts with curiosity and it stems from interests, and that's so true here as well. And I think one of the biggest barriers or roadblocks that people cite and that it becomes a reality is just the availability of resources and the amount of time. And in school, traditional units, we're so used to making sure that the process is linear for students, that we've got to get through this unit and we've got to do it in this number of days and we've got to adhere to our planning calendar. And I think that a lot of the value of design thinking comes from carving out additional time and not making things so bound by limited time or resources. And on the other side of that, we do have to hold people accountable to the things that they're trying. Let's apply it and let's see what it can do. And back to that prototyping idea, let's try a first version of whatever it is and see what we come up with. And it might fit the situation, or we may need to tweak it a little bit. Being realistic and honest is so important. Again, staff or students, we need to be realistic about what we can do, what we have, what we need to do in order to innovate and solve the issues that we're trying to improve. And more specifically to students, in order to help them see the design thinking process more visibly, more intentionally, having those discussions about what did you do, and breaking down the troubleshooting process, breaking down the need for improvement, the ideas, the different perspectives through discussion really benefits their learning. It's super important to highlight small victories, and again, students like to gloss over what seems like a little insignificant thing, but if that is a problem that several groups or people were having, that might be worthwhile to stop and really celebrate. As a teacher, I try to be mindful of not interfering too often, just making sure that the opportunity is there for my colleagues and my students to really try and explore, and also maybe struggle a little bit. That is okay. And knowing my students having good working relationships with them, and also knowing my colleagues and having good working relationships with them really helps me know when to intervene if necessary. I think that the most authentic design thinking happens when we create opportunities based on interests. We have talked at our school several times about different work and different initiatives trickling out from the people who are willing and able to take them on at any given moment, and letting them run with the capabilities that it presents. And those people then can become the influencers and the new experts. That holds true as well with students. Letting somebody be a skill leader or a knowledge leader really proves useful in a class. So design thinking has great power to replace the regular. It's really inspiring to see my students as engaged as they are when we give them a problem that they had no idea they were going to be tackling for the day, and really becoming enthused about coming up with a solution that is their own, that is working, that really shows their uniqueness and shows their success. It's really a neat thing. One thing that innovation is not to me is trendy. And I mentioned how I think that technology is a big part of innovation, but it's also not the only thing in innovation. And so we want to really avoid using only the trendiest and newest tools and techniques and ideas in terms of trying to innovate. We can go back to the toolboxes that are tried and true that we've got over the years, and really refine what we have done in the past, and make it new and better again. That's what innovating really ends up meaning. Okay, so to be more specific and to kind of bring this into an applicable idea, my call to action and what I'm intending to do myself and help my colleagues see the value of is to use design thinking and to help students create digital design portfolios. We are implementing a full design curriculum in my school this year in 7th and 8th grade for the first time. And I think there's great power in letting students showcase their work, their knowledge, their skills, their growth, their reflection, their struggles, all of these things. And if we can do this over multiple years, as I'm going to lay out here in just a moment, what a powerful and storytelling product that will become of who that student has grown to be over 3 years, and through the different projects and work that they have done. So, I chose this image to talk about how I plan to do that, because I think it shows a little bit about kind of taking a team, taking a village to sort of raise that proverbial child, or in this case, implement this project. Design portfolios and design thinking are really going to help our students own their learning, which we know is incredibly important for them to personalize what they do and internalize it. They also have to own their process, and know that the steps they go through are repeatable, and they're refinable, and they're things that they should be applying to other situations and improving. Teaching the value of failure and the value of struggle, and knowing how and when to improve upon something, I think is really something that students struggle with doing on their own. And through this design process, we've really been able to show students that a small thing can make a big difference, and that small improvement really can turn the tide of the direction of your work. It also lends itself incredibly well to teamwork and intentional collaboration that is extremely effective. Whether students are choosing their own groups or I'm choosing for them, these design projects, getting them to solve a problem with certain materials and resources, is something that naturally affords their ability to collaborate together very well. I've mentioned problem solving several times, and I think that we talk about problem solving in education and know that it is important, but through design, through the phases of the process and through the steps that we are implementing here, the problem solving process becomes much more visible, And that allows us then to break it down and help students see how it can be a transferred skill in the other classes that they're working on. And here is transfer and application. And I think that a big part of my call to action is that I want to be a resource and an expert for my colleagues in order to help them use design thinking and design units in their own classes, in other less traditionally used classes, English, social studies, what have you. So the power of the portfolio then is, as it says at the top, they own it, their own learning and process, but it demonstrates the growth. Um, and sometimes we try to demonstrate growth through statistics or numbers, but this visual product that the students can speak about the trials and tribulations of the effort involved, all of those things really becomes, in my mind, the most personalized and customized and efficient and effective product of showing that growth. So to break this down, what I think really would need to change and be innovated in education at large in order to use design thinking as a real call to action to help students internalize this work and show great growth and improvement is to move away from a traditional letter grading system. There's a lot of writing out there by people who have tried this and thought about this that suggests that standards-based grading and standards-based curriculum and letter grading and all of these things that came out of the sort of the industrialized model of education are less important now and less real for the working world and the changing society that we live and work in. So moving away from sort of some of those prepackaged ideas in education would be a good first step. I have another quote here that would sort of encompass another part of the process. It says, design creates stories and stories create memorable experiences. And a lot of the writing and literature out there about design thinking in the design industry talks about the most valuable designers may not have educational credentials always, but they certainly have a wide range of experiences in order to draw upon. And that's what we're trying to give students in my class is a way to build their experiences, to let them use new tools and new materials that they have never experienced and build that background. So then, what I'm hoping to see is a variety of improvements, both social and academic, process-based and product-based, and the outcomes that students can come up with over those 3 years in compiling a digital portfolio will really pay off and show their growth over that time, that they can then really apply skills and knowledge later in high school and college too. All right, my suggestion and my plan for this year is to use the new Google Sites, which I think are a dramatic improvement over past versions, to help students set up a portfolio that shows the various aspects of not just information and knowledge and skills, but also soft skills like collaboration, teamwork, empathy, communication, critical thinking, the things that, again, we know are extremely important in explicitly teaching in education, but that sometimes become sort of a secondary element to a lot of the units that we develop based on standards. So the 7 through 9 opportunity here really will help students discover and see the examples of growth that they have come up with. So just to kind of close here, we for years have thought about creating physical space at schools and making sure that we have all the newest and best research-based physical spaces that allow for students to be the most successful. But I think the next real big change needed in education to break down some of the models that have become outdated and less successful in reaching all of our different types of students is to just not forget the curriculum, not forget the opportunity that lies in front of us to teach students the real skills that will be needed in the 21st century. So there we have it. Thank you for listening to my design thinking call to action.